It's a show where us two guys, this guy and me, watch movies from our movie list of shame or movie blind spot. Basically, they're movies that we haven't yet seen, but we're rectifying that today. And this week we have a movie that I haven't seen. And before we get, and to get into that, let me toss it over to this guy right next to me, Andy. That's his name. I'm Adam.
Yeah, that is my name.
Andy, what are we watching this week or today?
All right. Tensions flare on a hot summer day between Sal, the owner of a neighborhood pizzeria, and a few of his customers in Spike Lee's Do the Right Thing.
And you called him a bum? I don't think he was a bum. He just wasn't right for me. He wasn't compassionate. I need passion in my life.
I would say he's a Mama Luke.
He's a Mama Luke? Yeah, right.
Yo, Mook.
A couple of words of Thai.
Okay.
Mookie.
So you know I'm still
What?
Come you got no brothers up on the wall?
Man, ask Sal, right?
Hey, Sal, how come you got no brothers up on the wall here?
You want brothers on the wall? Get your own place. You can do what you want to do. You can put your brothers and uncles and nieces and nephews, your stepfather, stepmother, whoever you want, you see? But this is my pizzeria. American Italians on the wall only.
Take it easy,
And you.
Do the Right Thing was written and produced and directed by one Spike Lee. I don't think I need to introduce Spike Lee. I think everybody knows who he is. He's always sitting courtside at Knicks games, that's for sure.
Wearing his Jordans.
Wearing his Jordans and still makes tons of movies as well as documentaries.
It's interesting. He's at Knicks games, but he wears like a lot of Dodgers stuff. Which I know is like,
I guess, yeah, he's
they're
a fan of the
different teams.
Brooklyn Dodgers.
Oh, I guess they were the Brooklyn Dodgers before they moved to LA.
Right.
Okay, fair enough.
Even though they moved to LA, they're still in his heart. They haven't moved out of his heart.
Fair enough. All right, that's a good call. Sorry, go on.
So the music for Do the Right Thing was actually done by Spike Lee's father, Bill Lee. And Bill Lee is 94 years old this year.
Wow.
Still with us.
Wow.
The music also features saxophone player Branford Marsalis, as well as, of course, if you're not a fan of the song Fight the Power by Public Enemy at the beginning of this movie, you certainly won't be by the end because it's played a lot.
Yeah.
And the version that was created, because that song was actually created for this movie.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, and then it would later on appear on their album Fear of a Black Planet, but the version that's in this movie actually features Branford Marsalis on saxophone. The cinematography for this movie is by Ernest Dickerson. Ernest Dickerson worked with Spike Lee from the beginning of his film career. He shot his student film, Joe's Bedside Barbershop, We Cut Heads. And incidentally, I think we mentioned before when we did some Ang Lee films, Ang Lee was a student, or was a classmate of Spike Lee's, and of course he helped him out with that student film as well. But Ernest Dickerson shot that film. He went on to shoot She's Gotta Have It. He shot School Days. He shot this movie. He shot, I think, Mo Better Blues and Jungle Fever, and then he struck out on his own and he became a director. He's made movies like Juice, Demon Night, Tales from the Crypt, Demon Night. Oh, yeah.
Podunk, yes, sir.
And Bones with Snoop Dogg. And now it looked like on his filmography over the last decade plus, he's done a ton of television series, like well-known television series. Like I saw The Walking Dead in there and Bosch and some other stuff. So he's directed a lot of different things. The movie stars Spike Lee as Mookie, Danny Aiello as Sal, John Turturro as Sal's son Pino, Richard Edson as Sal's son Vito. And Richard Edson, I always love seeing that guy because he's in Ferris Bueller's Day Off whenever Ferris and Cameron drop off the car. He's one of the parking attendants. And Ferris is like, "Do you speak English?" And he's like, "What country do you think this is?" I love the way he says that. Bill Nunn plays Radio Raheem. Giancarlo Esposito, of course, very well known these days to audiences of Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul, is Gustavo Fring. He plays Bugging Out. Ossie Davis and Ruby Dee played DeMayer and mother-sister. They were married in real life. They were a real-life couple. Samuel L. Jackson plays the radio DJ, Mr. Senior Love Daddy. And additionally, the movie includes people like Robin Harris, Paul Benjamin, Frankie Faison, Roger Guenver-Smith, comedian Martin Lawrence, John Savage, Frank Vincent, and Rick Aiello, who's Danny Aiello's son, actually plays the police officer who chokes Radio Raheem's character. Or Radio Raheem, the character, sorry, the Bill Nutt's characters, I guess I should say. So this is a movie that I have seen.
I think you missed one person.
What did I say?
It also introduced Rosie Perez.
I did. I did. You're right. I completely glossed over it. Yes, Rosie Perez. Thank you for pointing that out. Yes, she's this was her film debut. She plays Tina.
Yeah, apparently Spike Lee found her at a dance club.
Yeah, he liked the way she danced, and he was like, "I like the way you move."
And he's like, "I'm gonna make a whole 2-minute intro of this movie if you just busted a move." Do kids say that these days?
I do.
Okay, yeah.
I still say it. Yeah. She's busting a dance move over the opening credits
Sorry-
to fight the power.
Sorry to
actually.
interrupt you.
No, I'm glad you pointed that out. I can't read
No, me either.
sometimes, and so I was like, okay, that's everybody. Yeah. All right, so this is a movie that I have seen. This is my third time.
All right.
Once again, seeing it.
Lucky
Yeah,
number 3.
the three's the magic number for me. This is a movie you've never seen.
Never seen it.
Obviously, you know who Spike Lee is.
I have
Obviously,
no clue who the guy is.
Yeah, you've seen other Spike Lee's, some other Spike Lee movies.
I think I've seen a handful. I've seen the bank robbery movie, that's
Inside Man.
Inside Man, which I really like.
Yeah.
We saw Black Klansman together at the theater.
Yep.
I've seen like a mismatch of different movies he's done.
Yeah.
But I'd say there's probably more he's made than I've seen.
He's made a lot.
He makes he was there for a while. It seemed like he was making one a year.
I feel like that's accurate.
Like,
yeah,
'cause
he makes a lot.
Yeah, like he got Game in '98, then he got the Summer Sam in '99.
Yeah.
I just felt like there for a while he was doing one a year.
Yeah, he makes a lot of movies and he makes documentaries as well.
Yeah.
So he's a
He did a lot of music videos.
videos. He's a
commercials.
busy guy.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's hard to keep up with that guy.
It's true. So yeah, I've not seen Do the Right Thing. I do know. I think this is like the most critically acclaimed movie he's done. Probably. It was definitely like even though he did like his like you said, his collegiate movie before this and stuff like that. I think this is what really kind of opened the doors for him and all that kind of stuff.
Oh,
at least as I know it in like the zeitgeist and all that kind of stuff.
Definitely.
So I have never seen Do the Right Thing. And I didn't know much going into it. I do think there's like he's done some other movies that are kind of maybe like spiritual successors to this movie that kind of maybe touch on the same kind of area and the same kind of people and stuff like that. I don't know if characters reappear and all that kind of stuff.
I think Mookie, the character that he plays in this movie, appears in Red Hook Summer.
Okay.
Which is a movie that I had never even heard of until I was reading, when I was doing the research for this. Yeah, I was like, oh, okay.
So, so Do the Right Thing, it's one of those kind of movies that I don't typically like because it's not really... The movie's not about like a plot, right? There's no like overarching plot. Like we got to do this, we got to get this done, we got to prevent this from happening. There's no this. It's more of a like. I don't want to say a day in the life because it takes place over. It feels like a little bit longer than a day.
That's pretty much sun up to sundown.
Yeah. So, but it's more like a pastiche and like what life is like and all that kind of stuff. And you're just seeing these different characters interact and all that kind of stuff. So normally those movies kind of leave me cold, but this movie, surprisingly, I liked it a lot.
Oh yeah.
I felt like everyone was really fleshed out and I found most of the characters pretty interesting. I think like Smiley is probably tough character to watch and have in movies that way these days. Mm-hmm. And so that felt unusual and felt weird to me and kind of caught me off guard. Yeah. Any scene he was in and stuff like that. And then there's some of the stuff, like some of the characters I wish they did more. Like we had like the three guys that were like on the corner, looking at like the Korean grocery store.
I love them.
They just were doing commentary, but I guess nothing really came of them doing that, right? I mean, I guess at the end they kind of prevent them from like destroying that guy's store after the pizza place burns down. Yeah. And again, we spoiled the name of the movies or the titular movies.
We will definitely spoil the ending of this.
Yeah.
You can't talk about this movie without talking about the end.
But I'm digressing. So overall, I liked it. I like kind of diving into these characters' lives and seeing all that stuff. I do like I feel like Samuel Jackson's character is kind of like this interstitial, almost like narrator of things. And to me, that kind of helped bring all these stories together and all that kind of stuff. Mm. Like it just helped it flow a little bit more for me. And I really like that. I will say, so I liked it. I will say that my biggest fault of this movie is that it looks like, to me, like it could be a filmed stage play. Like I feel like everything is like, especially with those guys like on the corner, it's just like them in front of the red background and then they're having their dialogue. And it feels like they would cut the lights and then all of a sudden there's a scene here with these two people talking. and then cut the lights, and then there's two people here. Like it felt very stagey to me, and I could see it like translate almost one for one into being a production of like, of these stories, because it felt like each one was like a little vignette that kind of took place in one area. Like we can have a scene of Sal's pizza shop, we can have a scene of the corner, and you can just kind of like flash between each of these little vignettes and stuff like that. So it didn't feel very filmic to me in that way. Like the colors were bright and everything, but it just felt like the camera was very, very stationary, and it was these characters in front of like a background or a scrim, giving their dialogues, and then we'd move on to the next piece. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
So it felt very. I wish it felt more movie like. Like I said, I think if you can take pretty much everything that we saw here and put it on the stage, and you wouldn't be missing anything. So I don't feel like it being filmed brought much to it that to that format, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
So that's really, like I said, I like it, but that's my biggest criticism is that this movie that's really well heralded and that's a few years old, almost. It's just that it felt very like play-like to me and very stagey in watching it.
Yeah. I don't think that bothers me as much, and I think it contrasts against like the ending, because there's a lot more movement, and chaotic kind of stuff going on there at the end. And actually, now that I think about it, it's sun up to sundown, but then actually the next day, so it is like the next morning, because that's when he confronts Sal
wants
to get his money.
Yeah.
So it's a
and
that
was
a little bit longer than a day.
And that whole dynamic was just odd to me. But we can get into that a little bit more. I want to know what you thought about it, and then we can get into maybe a little bit more details about the movie and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So you said you've seen it a few times before. Mm-hmm. What'd you remember? Do you remember liking it? Do you remember about it? And then what'd you think about it this time around?
So the first time I saw it was back in probably 1990. And I honestly think that I watched the Siskel and Ebert episode where they reviewed this for the first time. And of course, they're nuts about it. They loved it. And so I think I had seen School Days, which is this is his third film. Yeah, I'm not counting his student film, although that did get a lot of acclaim as well. But his first film was She's Gotta Have It. His second film was School Days. His third film was Do the Right Thing. So I had not seen She's Gotta Have It, but I had seen School Days. And I had no clue what to make of School Days when I saw it, because I was like 11. But when I saw Do the Right Thing, I was also young. I was a teenager, and I didn't get it. Like I mean, I'm a white guy. I was like watching. I was like, this is completely foreign to me, right? I mean, I didn't know anything, and I just thought it was kind of boring. I was like, why has this movie got so much acclaim? These guys just kind of walk around. They're just hanging out. There's nothing really interesting happening. I mean, obviously at the end, it explodes into a lot of violence. But other than that, I thought nothing happened in the movie, really. I was like, this is just kind of boring, so I didn't care about it. Well, then I actually watched it probably within the last 3 or 4 years. So it's pretty fresh on my mind. So obviously the second time I watched it, obviously nowadays, so back then things like this were happening, and I'm speaking specifically of Radio Raheem getting murdered. Back then things like this were happening, but I think the white community didn't really see it, obviously as much as the black community. And then Rodney King happened 2 years after this. So Rodney King happened in 1991, and that kind of brought a little bit of attention to it. But then it's just kind of like, okay, well, life goes on, right? And nowadays that everybody has a camera in their pocket, we see it all the time. We see it all the time. So watching it, 3 or 4 years ago, I think it was before the whole George Floyd thing. I don't remember specifically when that happened, but it was maybe around the same time, something like that. But the movie took on a whole new meaning for me. Yeah. And so then I could appreciate it a lot more, and it just depressed me, right? Yeah. So now it's like the third time watching it, I feel almost the same way about this movie as I feel about like Green Room, for example. I know what's coming, and so I'm like filled with this like nervous dread and anticipation. Cool. At least in the movie Green Room, the violence, the really shocking stuff comes pretty early in the movie, and so you can kind of, I mean, the movie's still tense after that. But I'm speaking, and I'm not going to spoil it because we're not reviewing that movie. But I'm speaking specifically of the part. the entire buildup from the beginning of the movie until that happens, because I've seen that 2 or 3 times now, and the entire buildup until that happens, I'm just like on edge. And so I almost feel like I'm on edge for the entire movie of Do the Right Thing, because all the stuff really happens at the end, all the chaotic kind of climax and everything. So that's not to say that I can't enjoy the movie, because I also like the movie, a lot. But it gives it like it paints it with a weird kind of feeling that I have whenever I watch it. And again, because now we see so much of this kind of thing go on, either death or injury, one of the two, but either one is bad. Obviously death is worse, but we see so much of this go on. It's like I cannot separate that, right? And I mean that's a good thing, right? I mean, and that's what Spike Lee was trying to do, bring it to people's attention.
Yeah.
This kind of thing happens. It was happening in 1989. It was happening in 1979. It was happening in 1969 and on into the past, and it's happening now into the future.
Yeah.
And it's depressing, but it has to be said, I think. But yeah, I mean, I like the movie. It is just a hangout movie. I mean, basically, it's these characters kind of hanging out on a very hot summer day. And I wanted to do it because I think when this actually airs, it'll be the last of August is when this will be on YouTube. So that's kind of why I chose it. Plus, you hadn't seen it. But yeah, I mean, I like it. I like the colors, like the bright red colors behind the three guys that are talking.
The brick wall and stuff.
There's a lot of that kind of stuff. I actually like some of the cinematography. I mean, I agree with you. It is static a lot of the times, but there's a part. There's at least 2 parts that really stood out to me. One is when Bugging Out, Giancarlo Esposito's character is in the pizzeria with Mookie, with Spike Lee, and he's eating, and he's like, that's when he's like, how come you don't have anybody on the wall, and so Sal's like, you got to get out of here, and Mookie escorts him out, and the camera stays within the pizzeria, but it just zooms out through like the screen door looking thing, the window, and shows them talking about their car, and then it just zooms out whenever they're done and comes back in. So you never leave the pizzeria. So you're seeing it from within there. I also like the part where Smiley comes up when Danny Aiello is talking to John Turturro, and he's like banging on the window, because the camera also stays within there, and then the action moves outside where John Turturro's like, get the fuck out of here, whatever, and Sal's character, or Danny Aiello's character Sal, is just like, like puts his hand down.
Sorry to interrupt.
No, go ahead.
One of my favorite things I've noticed on the spoiler, we're watching 2 Spike Lee movies this week. Yeah, is that he always has interesting things going on in the background of his shots. Like, you would have like the main action up here, but if you just focus past it, there's always someone doing something, or something that's really interesting kind of going on in the background. So it feels very interesting and lived in that we kind of do that. And so you talking about like the camera staying stationary and people moving out of the foreground and the background to do action stuff reminded me of, there's a lot of times where I would look past the actors in the foreground and someone would be doing something interesting, or something that like brought the scene together, like in the background and stuff like that. It was really, really, I think it was as play-like as it felt like to me. It did feel staged very well, like really well thought out of what everyone and everything's doing in the scene, in what the camera sees and stuff like that.
Yeah, no, totally. Oh, the other thing I was going to say, or one other thing I was going to say about the camera work, is this movie has a lot of Dutch angles. I don't know if that stood out to you. I mean, I say a lot. I mean, it has a decent amount. Yeah. But, we talk about Dutch angles being like misused or abused. It's like, why are they doing that? I think in this movie they serve a purpose, because it seemed to me, and I could be wrong, I didn't like consciously write it down, but it seemed to me like every time there's a Dutch angle, anytime, so by Dutch angle we mean like a tilted kind of view on the action. Every time there's a Dutch angle in this movie, it's when 2 people are having conflict. Yes. And so, like, even when Mother's sister is sitting in her window and she's yelling at the mayor to like get out of the way because he's blocking her view, it's Dutch angles. Or when Bugging Out is arguing with Sal, Dutch angles. So every time there's 2 people that can't come to an agreement, you're tilted, because something is off, right? I feel like that was the purpose of that. So Spike Lee wasn't just using it willy nilly, like, I'm just gonna do Dutch angle because it looks fancy. I mean, I think he was really trying to do something with that. So that I applaud.
Yes.
Like normally Dutch angles are like, that's annoying. Like
Kenneth
Thor,
Branagh, just
exactly.
establishing shot. Dutch
Exactly.
angle.
Like it's like why? Like
Yeah.
if you're not doing it to serve some kind of purpose, like I'm not sure why you would just use the hell out of it.
Yeah,
so
yeah,
I think in this movie, they don't use it. Or they only use it, when it actually means something. The other thing about this movie, I think, is the music by Bill Lee, which I think is quite good. It's very serene, I feel like, and pastoral, and it's such a complete contrast to like Public Enemy, Fight the Power. So, because those are basically the two things you hear in the movie.
Yeah.
You hear Fight the Power, and you hear this very like da 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 like, and Branford Marsalis, playing the saxophone and everything. So I once again, I think it provides a nice contrast between the serene and the peaceful to the chaotic. And not to say that, I mean, Public Enemy's song, Fight the Power, is not just about chaos. It's about fighting the abuse of power.
Yeah.
It's not about fighting necessarily law enforcement or any one thing in particular. It's about fighting, abuse of power, people that abuse power. Is what. But still, in contrast to like the serene kind of Bill Lee music, I feel like it's, it provides a good kind of opposite to that, I think.
I get that. The music really didn't resonate with me, but
I didn't know if you were going to get annoyed at hearing "Fight the Power" over and over.
I mean, they played it a lot, but it was all diegetic music.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. He's playing it on his big boom box. Yeah.
Where I feel like with when we're talking about The Graduate, it wasn't diegetic music, and it just felt like. I was wrong. It was more than just 3 Simon and Garfunkel songs, but it felt like it was just 3 Simon and Garfunkel songs.
Right.
So for me, the couple things I'm having trouble grappling with is, so they established that Bugging Out basically eats at Sal's like a few times a week, right? Mm-hmm. But why was it that day that he got so upset about there not being, any African American or black people on the wall? Like, why was that today? Like, I wish there was an incident that kind of led to that. Maybe it was, they heard on the news more violence towards that community, and then all of a sudden it made Bugging Out more hyper aware of what's going on. You know what I mean?
Is that after he gets his Jordan stepped on by the white guy who's wearing like a Larry Bird shirt and all that?
I feel like it's before, but maybe it's not.
I don't know. I'm thinking maybe it's after that, and that just kind of triggers something in his mind or something like that. I mean, because
I feel like it's pretty early on in the movie, and again, I've seen it just the one time, so I'm wrong. But I feel like it's pretty early on in the movie that he gets kind of bumped out. I feel like the first time we really see Mookie in there is like he's in there eating pizza, and then he's complaining, and they're like, "Get him out of here," and stuff like that.
So I was reading, and I have to look it up because I don't remember what the episode's name is, but I was reading on Wikipedia if it's accurate. I think it has a source that it cites, but it says that obviously part of what inspired Spike Lee to write this movie is the injustices that were happening with black men and women, back in the 1980s and beyond. But one of the other things that he got inspiration from was an Alfred Hitchcock episode called Shopping for Death, in which the main characters discuss their theory that hot weather increases violent tendencies. Yeah. I've actually seen that episode, and it's really good, because it's basically talking about just like that. When it gets hot, people lose their mind. So maybe it's just bugging out.
Yeah, and I just wish there was something a little bit more like a reason for that, because they established that
he's been there plenty. Why is he just now bringing it up? Yeah.
And the other thing is, I don't get the antagonism between Mookie and Sal. Like Sal, I mean, and maybe that's the kind of the purpose of this thing is that Sal, even though he kind of was part of the conflict that led to Radio Raheem getting killed, right? And that's why they end up burning down the place. But other than that, he seems like a pretty decent guy. Like, he cares about the neighborhood. Like, he's talking about to his kids, and his kids are like, why are we here? And he's like, hey, I've fed these people for many years. They've grown up on my food, and that means a lot to me. And he seems like he's a nice guy. And even, like, with Mookie, he's kind of like not the hardest worker and not all that kind of stuff. And so, but Sal seems pretty generous and letting Mookie kind of do what he does. But Mookie just has no affection for Sal whatsoever, and it's just like I just don't get. I just don't get that, like it seems like Sal's really putting himself out there for Mookie and for the neighborhood, and Mookie just doesn't want any of it, doesn't want to have any of it at all, and I don't get that antagonism between those two characters. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I don't see Mookie's antagonism towards Sal as much. I do think that I think that Spike Lee did a good job of writing the characters of Sal, Pino, and Vito, because Sal is very much branched into his two sons.
Yeah.
So there's the part of Sal who's, welcoming and not, spewing racial epithets or whatever until Radio Raheem makes him mad.
And then they do that
Excuse
camera,
me.
they do that dolly in where he's just saying it.
And then he's spewing the N-word right and left all of a sudden.
Maybe that's, and sorry to jump on you, but maybe that's Spike Lee saying, like, on the outside he may seem gracious and nice, but inside he's a racist monster.
Yeah.
And maybe that's
I think we see that all the time.
Too. So, but go on.
Yeah, no, but I think that the character of Sal has this, this outward kind of, lovable, well, not lovable, loving maybe, guy. Because obviously John Turturro's son Pino is racist. I mean, he's saying the N-word constantly, right? And he's just like,
he hates
I hate being here, right? I don't want to be.
everyone.
Why are we in this neighborhood? Why can't we be in our own neighborhood? All this other stuff. And then you got the other son, Vito, Richard Edson, who's like, no, Mookie is like a brother to me. Like, don't tell me that, because John Turturro's trying to tell him like Mookie's going to stab you in the back. You can't trust him. You can't trust these people and all this other bullshit. And Danny Aiello is kind of a combination of those two. And you see the Vito side of Danny Aiello. And especially, I love the scene when. So I guess I did. Did I skip her to Joie Lee? I did. I skipped that whole line. Rosie Perez and Joie Lee. Sorry, Rosie and Joie. Joie Lee is Spike Lee's sister in real life and plays his sister in this movie, Jade. And I love the part where Jade comes to the pizzeria and she's got the nice pretty hat and everything, and Danny Aiello is all about it. Yeah, he's all about it.
And
but then
Spike
at the
Lee
end
was
of the movie,
like, what?
His
cackles were going up.
I don't think so, or whatever. Yeah. But at the end of the movie, Sal is just saying N-word this and N-word that, and it's just like,
does he though when he's like giving the money and stuff?
No, sorry. I mean when he's like beating the boombox up with a baseball bat and stuff. He's saying, all of a sudden he comes out and he's very hateful.
Yeah, no. I agree. Yeah. But I just, and then again, like, I'm just, it's just, to me, it's interesting because, like, Mookie has no qualms, like, going back and getting his money after this guy's place burned down. And it's just, like, have a little bit of a heart. Like, I understand this guy's, like, building just burned down. And I understand, and it's just, like, in the riot that led up to it, it seemed like Mookie was already ready to side against Sal. And I just, like I said, I didn't see Sal as that much of a monster. Again, probably in my memory, I'm downplaying him saying all those, being racist, basically. Which, now in hindsight,
reminds me of like Michael Richards, when he was on stage and suddenly he gets angry and all this racial stuff comes out. So that's kind of how Sal acts in this movie.
So in hindsight, maybe Spike Lee is trying to tell us like he is not as nice as he seems. But for me, I was kind of reading him as pretty nice. And so for me, it was just felt really weird that Mookie would just, have no love for him and just basically not care and join this riot that's taking his place down for a place that he works at for this guy that seems so generous. But again, if Sal is a racist monster, then I can kind of see that a little bit. Yeah.
Well, and I think that it's very difficult to kind of explain why Mookie does what he does, because I've seen the movie 3 times now, and I still am like, so why does that character do that? Yeah. Why does it do that? And the only thing I can come up with is everybody's angry and they need to direct their anger at something. And so he feels like, well, if I'm the one that kind of initiates this, I know Sal's not going to try and like murder me or something, like I actually know him. So if I and I'm completely spitballing here, but I feel like he thinks, well, if I start this, we could at least have some kind of outlet for this anger that we have, because they're pissed, right? I would be pissed too. They're pissed, and so what happens? They start to burn down they start to get angry at the other guy's store, but then they're like, no, okay, we'll leave it alone or whatever, and that's enough. And the mother sister character, at first she's all like, yeah, burn it down. But when she actually sees the destruction that's been wrought, she's horrified. And
Well,
she
she's
starts like
crying.
wailing.
Yeah.
And the mayor comes and like comforts her or whatever.
Yeah.
So, but I don't know. I mean, I think that's a good topic of discussion is like, why does Spike Lee or why does Mookie do this in the movie? And what are his motivations? And did he do the right thing?
Yeah.
That's kind of the big question, right?
Yeah.
But I wrote in my notes like the ending question mark because I don't really like that ending all that much where he comes to get his money from Sal. I feel like at that point Sal would be like whatever, like they would be really still pissed at each other.
He was mad, but he's still like all right, I'm gonna pay you more, and then Mookie's like I only want what I've earned, right, which is honorable, but it's just like again, if he was like I guess he was just so shocked and so dejected that Sal just is like, okay, yeah, I guess you want your money.
Apparently, there was a different ending. Spike Lee rewrote it because apparently the ending was too nice. Like they made up almost. Like they came up to a much more amicable resolution. In this, it's just kind of like,
Parting
screw
ways.
you. Yeah, here's your money. Get out of here. So I'm at least satisfied with that because I would really hate to have them ending where they're like huggy. Like, hey, come here.
Yeah, I don't want a Hallmark thing.
No, that would be a terrible, terrible ending.
All that stuff is really good and really interesting and just makes you think. And again, I honestly, watching this time, I really didn't think about the context of kind of the violence that the Black communities faced in the last few years that have been, so prominent on the news and stuff like that. So, well, it's interesting that I could watch this movie and not think about that. And now that you brought that to my attention, it makes this movie kind of sit a little bit differently with me.
Seeing it back in 1989, obviously, as I said, I was a kid.
Yeah.
But I hadn't seen or read about, jack shit really in life. At least of all things that were happening like this, like Radio Raheem being murdered. And then, like I say, Rodney King, that video came out a couple of years after this. But now it's like,
everywhere.
Yeah, it's ripped from the headlines every freaking week or month or something, it seems like, something bad happening. And so, I think watching a movie like this now, you're like, holy crap, and this has been going on for much longer than what we've seen. It's just now everybody has a camera. Well, I think at a moment's notice.
The interesting thing, too, is that there's a lot of criticism from what I read leveled at Spike Lee because they thought that this movie would incite violence from the community that watched it and all that kind of stuff. And Spike Lee's like, you guys are stupid. Basically. Rightfully so. He's like, white people don't go crazy whenever they watch murder or mass murders or horror films and all that kind of stuff. So why would a Black community get upset over this? He's right, but it was just interesting that people thought that.
Totally. I think Spike Lee. So after I saw Do the Right Thing back then, even though I didn't like it, I was interested in seeing more of his stuff. So when Mo Better Blues came out, I saw it, and Jungle Fever and Malcolm X and stuff like that. And, basically all through the 90s, I pretty much watched, if a Spike Lee movie came out, I watched it. Because I liked Mo Better Blues and Jungle Fever. Again, I didn't really get Do the Right Thing back then. But as those other movies came out and I was getting older, I was starting to appreciate them more. Yeah. So I was a big Spike Lee fan. Not to say that I'm not a Spike Lee fan now, but the output that he's done over the last 15 years or so, there's a lot of movies that I just have not seen. But I mean, as far as his early work, because I've gone back, I haven't gone back. I don't think I've watched School Days, but I've watched She's Gotta Have It several times. I've watched Jungle Fever several times. I've watched Malcolm X several times. I think they're all great movies. So he's super super talented, and yes, this was definitely the movie that put him on the map, squarely on the map. Yeah. And he's been, this movie, and of course, doing all those commercials with Michael Jordan also helped a great deal. But yeah, he's been a household name pretty much ever since this, for the most part. So Fight the Power, as I mentioned, was written by Public Enemy. So Spike Lee approached them because he wanted some kind of anthem for the movie. They wrote this song. I didn't know that until I was, watching the movie this time and reading about it afterwards. I thought that, for some reason, I thought it was a pre-existing song. Yeah.
I did when I was watching it.
because it's on Fear of a Black Planet, and for some reason I was thinking Fear of a Black Planet came out before this movie, but no, the song was written for this movie, and I think it's very impressive because it's a great song and it's very well known. In fact, Rolling Stone ranks it as the number 2 greatest song of all time in their 2021 list of whatever it is, the 500 greatest songs. Number 1, in case you're wondering, is R.E.S.P.E.C.T. Aretha Franklin. The movie Do the Right Thing was nominated for Best Supporting Actor. Danny Aiello was nominated for Best Supporting Actor. He lost to Denzel Washington in Glory, which we did on the show a couple of years ago, I think now.
Yep.
And the original screenplay was nominated for Best Original Screenplay for Spike Lee. It lost to Dead Poets Society, which I'm not a fan of. Yeah. That won the Oscar for Best Original Screenplay. Those were the only 2 Oscars that was nominated for it. Lost both. But it was selected for the National Film Registry for preservation. But in the National Film Registry, that is, in 1999.
All right.
And it's 92% fresh on Rotten Tomatoes, 89% audience score. It did get 2 big thumbs up from Siskel and Ebert. They both named it as the best film of 1989, and in their top 10 list for the 1980s, Siskel ranked it at number 6, and Roger Ebert ranked it as number 4. It's the best movie of the 1980s. And I know I've said this before, but their number 1 movie was Raging Bull on both of their lists of the 1980s. And Leonard Maltin gives it 3 stars. Lest we forget Leonard.
Speaking of Raging Bull, I think I read in the trivia that Spike Lee originally wanted Robert De Niro to play Danny Aiello's role.
I think I read that too, maybe.
Yeah. But Robert De Niro's like, I've done this character too many times.
Yeah. No, I don't think so.
Interesting.
Well, cool. I heard that the pizzeria was like that whole thing was built specifically for the movie, but it had like a working pizza oven, and so they could like actually make pizzas in it and stuff.
That sounds awesome.
Yeah.
All right, that was Do the Right Thing. On these Monday episodes, we like to talk about what we've been watching. So I guess, I don't know, I'll go first. I'm rolling dice.
Go ahead.
I watched a couple movies that I've been meaning to watch and catch up on. One I watched was Black Phone. That's the movie written by C. Robert Cargill and directed by the same guy who directed Scott Derrickson. He directed, so both those guys wrote and directed the first Sinister movie, and they also wrote and directed the first Doctor Strange movie. So they were back together for Black Phone, and it's based off a Joe Hill, who's Stephen King's son, short story. And I heard a lot of positive buzz about Black Phone. Like, I heard a lot of good things. I think it did well in the box office, so I was looking forward to watching it, and I thought the movie was okay. Like, I think the filmmaking is solid. I just didn't think the premise was all there. Have you seen Black Phone?
I have. I did not like it at
all.
It was completely underwhelming to me. I don't get the praise. To me it was dull.
I didn't like so like the one of the conceits is that the kid who's kidnapped can hear through the Black Phone the other kids that are kidnapped, and the way that was shot and rendered was just not good in my opinion.
No.
Like, it didn't work for me, I guess is the best way to say it. So yeah, I'm kind of with you. I don't understand. Like, I don't understand why it got so much praise and where it is, because I feel not the same way about it. And we both really like Sinister.
I really like Sinister. I really dislike Black Phone. Like, I was very low on it. There's not much I could say good about it.
Yeah.
Honestly.
So I'm confused by it, but I do think like there's some interesting filmmaking that's done with it. I can't remember exact shots, but I remember thinking like, okay, Scott Derrickson could definitely shoot a movie. It's just this movie's not very good.
Yeah.
The other movie I watched, and I know is one that you watched, and I wanted to catch up on, was Dan Trachtenberg's new movie Prey. And I watched that on Hulu.
Not P-R-A-Y.
Yeah, P-R-E-Y. Prey. Like Prey and Predator. I like this movie. For me, it was a tough watch in the home setting, and I wish I watched it in the theater. Mm-hmm. It felt like a lot of the time the movie is a very quiet and still movie before, like, shit hits the fan and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. And I found my attention a little bit waning during those slow parts, and it was really hard for me to kind of stay engaged and stay with the movie and stuff like that. So that was tough, and I don't get that I feel like that split of my attention whenever I'm watching in the theater. So I wish I had a theatrical run. The other thing I found that I didn't find very even was, I think, and I listened to some interviews with Dan Trachtenberg, he was trying to set up the main character as this person that didn't necessarily have to go from zero to badass in the movie. He wanted to give her like some abilities and some, show that she can kind of hold her own, and that way the leap to being complete badass doesn't seem so drastic. But for me, all that stuff where she is doing cool tricks with the axe and like jumping around, but then like can't, hunt a hawk or can't kill the lion. Well, sorry, I'm spoiling a little bit of stuff. Just felt very uneven for me. And I wish they kind of reined back some of her badassness and kind of felt and made it more, less that way. Because for me, it's felt like she's like if we're rating how her skill level, she's like 10. Now she's 65, and now she's 10, and now she's 55, and now she's 10, and then now she's 90. It just, to me, that felt like really uneven. And I wish they kind of reined back like all the axe tricks and all the stuff she was doing leading up to that. Like her brother, I felt like, he kind of was a plateau the whole line, but he was a badass from beginning to the end, right?
Mm-hmm.
And for her, I just felt like she'd have these badass moments, but then have these large like crevices of not badassness. And I get what he was trying to do, but for me, that felt very uneven for me. If that makes any sense.
Why can't we make good animal CGI? Because the animal CGI all sucks, to me.
Well, he
It all looks bad.
He talks about it a little bit in the interview. So one of the things so Disney bought Fox, which is why it's on Hulu and never came out in theaters, because Fox had a deal that any movie they released in theaters would go to HBO Max, and Disney's like, nope, HBO Max not getting any of this. It's literally the reason why it's on Hulu. Disney also has rules around actors and live animals. And so Dan said in the interview that he really wanted like a live bear to be in the movie and stuff like that. And it was no,
Like,
no from the get-go. He even said like stuff around like animal products, like it takes place in with Native Americans. And so they wear like a lot of furs, and all that stuff can't be, from what I understand, real animal furs and stuff like that. So even like sourcing like what they would wear was difficult because they had to follow, Disney guidelines.
Yeah.
He talked about it, and it seemed like the CGI was rushed a little bit at the end. Not rushed, just they didn't have enough time to perfect everything. And so for him, it was, am I getting some of these cool moments? Is it enough to get the point across and all that kind of stuff? So I got the vibe from him that he wished he had more time to make the CGI better and all that kind of stuff. But it was really just like they were going against the clock, and he was trying to do the best he could with what resources he had. So I'm with you. I think
Looks bad.
it looks bad.
I feel like a lot of times animal CGI in any movie looks bad.
The line looks terrible. The bear was pretty good, but the line was terrible. But at least they had a real dog, which helped, because that real dog would have been terrible. So that's kind of my thoughts on Prey.
Like the Call of the Wild or whatever. Harrison Ford.
Ooh, that's rough. So that's kind of what I've been watching, just catching up on some of the movies that I've missed out on and all that kind of stuff. What have you been watching?
I have been watching other Spike Lee movies.
All right.
I watched a movie that I mentioned a minute ago that I've seen before called She's Gotta Have It, which was his very first debut feature. And I've said in the past that I think She's Gotta Have It's probably my favorite Spike Lee movie. It's hard to say that now. I still like it. Don't get me wrong. It's not that I watched it this time and was like, I don't like this as much. But you then watching this again, I'm like, Do the Right Thing is a really great movie. And I really love Malcolm X. I think that's a great movie. And so I don't know. It's hard. It's hard now to choose. I don't know that She's Gotta Have It's like my favorite out and out, But I still really like She's Gotta Have It a lot. I have not watched the Netflix like miniseries that they did, although I do plan to at some point, because I know that there's some characters that are in the movie that are in the miniseries and stuff like that. Tracy Camilla Johns that plays Nola Darling, she's in it. I know.
Didn't you direct?
He directs some of it. Yeah. He directed some of the episodes. Yeah. So I'll be interested to watch that. But I like She's Gotta Have It. There's a rawness to it. I mean, it's shot. It's in black and white, and at least the version that I was watching, the copy that I was watching was like streaming. It's very grainy, but I mean, it's that's how it looks, right? I mean, it's not like it's messed up in any way. but it just gives it like a certain rawness to it, like this black and white kind of grainy feel. It almost looks like it's 16 millimeter, but I don't think it was. I don't know. I didn't really look up the like provenance or whatever of the film stock that they use, but it's good. Like, and none of the people that were in it besides Spike Lee really went on to do a whole lot else. They all have different things throughout the years, but none of them really became like big stars.
Yeah.
Unlike some of the other people that Spike Lee would go on to work with. But I think everybody's uniformly good, and it's just it's a good movie. I mean, Nola Darling is a very interesting character. His sister Joie Lee is in She's Gotta Have It as well. But I dig it. I think it's a good movie. And the other Spike Lee movie that I watched was a Spike Lee movie that I've not seen. It's on Amazon Prime because I think it's an Amazon original movie or whatever, or an Amazon sponsored movie or studios, or Amazon Studios, I guess is what it is. And it's Chirac.
I remember hearing about Chirac, but I know nothing about it.
So it is, I think it came out like 2015 or something like that. It stars Tiana Paris. It's got Nick Cannon. It's got, if you like Samuel L. Jackson as the kind of chorus guy in this movie, he's the chorus in Lysistrata because it's based on a Greek play by Aristophanes called Lysistrata from like the 400s BC. So it's very old, but I liked it. I thought it was good. So the play Lysistrata is about a woman who tries to end the Peloponnese. I haven't read it, but I read the synopsis. She tries to end the Peloponnesian War by basically withholding sex from her husband. And she gets all the other women in the area to not give, not have sex with their husbands or their lovers. And, this movie updates it to modern settings in Chicago, or Chirac is how they call it, because Chicago is very violent. there's a lot of shootings and murders and things there. But so it's like Chirac, something like that. But it's two gangs, basically. So they're not having like the Peloponnesian War, but they're having like a gang war. Something stuck in my throat. But anyway, Tiana Paris plays a character who basically withholds sex because Nick Cannon's her boyfriend, and it just kind of goes from there. And also John Cusack is in the movie. He plays like a priest or preacher in the movie. He's actually really good, I thought. It's one of the best things I've seen him do in a while. But I liked it overall. I thought it was good.
Interesting.
It's a very interesting movie. It's a very interesting kind of adaptation, I guess, of that story, updated for modern times. But yeah, that's what I have been watching.
All right.
More Spike Lee.
Well, we've watched a Spike Lee movie today. You've watched some additional Spike Lee movies.
Yep.
What on earth are we going to pair with Do the Right Thing?
So Do the Right Thing takes place on a very, very hot summer day, and I knew that I wanted to pair Do the Right Thing with another Spike Lee movie, and so the first movie that jumped out at me, or that came to mind, because it's a movie that I've seen this movie before, was another movie that takes place not just on one summer day, but during a very, very particularly hot summer, the summer of 1977 in New York City. It's based on true events, and it's Summer of Sam. It came out a decade after Do the Right Thing.
All right. Well, stay tuned. On Wednesday, we watch Summer of Sam.
Summer of Sam.
All right. That was everything, what we've been watching, and Do the Right Thing. Let us know what you think about Do the Right Thing. Leave a comment down below if you're watching us on YouTube, or shoot us an email, realshame@gmail.com. We also answer viewers' questions that are sent to us, so send us those viewer questions. And please like, subscribe, share, do all that social media stuff with the episode. It really does help, and we are very appreciative of everyone that does that. And stay tuned on Wednesday when we find out when the Summer of Sam was. Andy spoiled it for you. He told you. It happened in 1977.
Did.
But we're going to...
Know your history.
Yeah, know your history.
Know
we're
your
going to
history.
dive more into that on Wednesday. We'll see you soon, guys. Have a good one. Bye.